Hello everyone, welcome back to my Restore Me discussion. If you're coming here without having watched the first part, please go check that out. I'll link it below, link it somewhere on the video. I don't want to make this intro super long. I just wanted to say I hope you enjoyed part 1. Let's get on to part 2. As always, honkin' spoiler alerts for Restore Me by Tahereh Mafi. This is the book that I'm going to be continuing discussing today. In the last part, we left off on the part where Juliet, Warner, Kenji, Nazira, and Haider meet and eat dinner for the first time. Anything previous to that you can go see in my first part, but let's just jump right into the rest of the book. First and foremost, I would just like to state the fact that when Warner just broke into Arabic, like no big deal, my heart, I think it's so cool to learn that Warner can speak different languages in 7 different languages. I'm so glad I'm filming this video a while after the book came out because now we've had time to talk about it, and I think we know 5 of the 7 languages. English, Arabic, Spanish, French, and Russian were confirmed by Nazira. We don't know the other 2. I really have no guesses as far as which other languages he speaks. I would like to say American Sign Language, but a lot of people have said that, like, since Anderson doesn't care about people with disabilities, then that wouldn't be necessary. I think that would be really cool. Otherwise, I'm thinking, like, I'm biased. I'm like, he better speak German so that we can communicate. One of my friends from Saudi Arabia who's read this book expressed disappointment that some of the Roman translation of the Arabic from their writing to the English phonetic version wasn't 100% accurate. There's a word that should have been hyphenated and it wasn't completely right. Hi friends, I'm currently editing this video and I forgot to mention there's also another part in the book where the language isn't used correctly. So whenever they meet the Argentinian characters, they're all speaking Spanish, but another booktuber slash Twitter threader person, Mel, who's from Argentina, made a Twitter thread talking about how the Spanish they were using in the book wasn't the same dialect of Spanish that native Argentinians would use, so it was inaccurate there. I want to mention this because it's really important that we show cultures accurately, and not all Latino cultures are the same language-wise. Hopefully in the next books we'll have this sorted out because the representation's great. It would just also be great if it was accurate. Just wanted to mention that up front, that yay, new characters that are from different countries, but also really disappointed that some of the languages aren't written accurately. So I just hope in future books, if they're learning new languages or talking to each other in different languages, that we have a little bit of proofreading, because I feel so bad that we were able to get this representation, but then these people who speak these languages don't speak them correctly, or the way that it's spelled in the book is incorrect. And also fitting my theme of noticing things that no one else cares about, the detail that Juliet is now sitting at the head of the table during this dinner is just like, there's certain things that came full circle in the series, and I think it was just such a great nod to In Shatter Me when Warner would sit at the head of the table and he was the person leading everything, and I'm just, now that the queen of my heart and North America is now sitting at the head of the table, no one else cares, but I was emo. Now here's when Nazira comes into the book. I feel like I could film an entire video about Nazira. Before we get super deep into this discussion, let me just disclaim, I love her with my full heart. I want her to choke me. She's beautiful. Stan 100%. People not loving Nazira in 2018? Fake news. It's really hard to talk about her because I'm trying to stay chronological, so I won't give away too much right now, but when we first meet her, she's super closed off, but now I'm wondering, does she recognize her and doesn't understand why she doesn't recognize her back? I have so many questions about why does Nazira recognize her and no one else does. Back whenever Haider first met Kenji and Juliet, was he awkward around her because he recognized her but didn't know if she knew, and just like, I have so many questions about like what people knew, because Warner confirmed does not recognize her, obviously, but Nazira does, and it seems like none of the other Supreme Commander's children do, so I'm just really concerned about why does Nazira have memories and no one else does. And at first I was so upset that Kenji threw a fit about Nazira wearing a hijab, and I was like, Kenji's like the best character in this series, why does he have to be the one that is ignorant and says stupid things and gets upset at her for this? But as I was complaining about that, and the more I read it, I think it's really symbolic that a character who is really great and has good intentions and falls in love with her later isn't the most educated. So now I'm not bothered by it. Obviously, I think it's such an amazing plot point for them to talk about the questions we have about religion in the series, and one of the most iconic quotes in this book. Why do men police the way that women dress? Yes, I love that this book brings up topics about that, because it's just, it's everything. I just got lipstick all over my hand, but like, it's everything I needed in this book. And although that scene was short-lived with Nazira being there, she just establishes herself as one of my new favorite characters of all time, especially in this series. I love her. I love the discussions she brings up. I love her rebellion wearing a hijab. From the representation to her actual personality, like everything about her I love. I love her. I would die for her. And then we get a scene that talks about how Juliet caught Warner listening to Bob Dylan. Excuse me? If you're anything like me, an emo motherfucker, if you Google the lyrics to that song and Google the meaning of it, it just splays me right through the heart. At the same time, every time that song comes on, I'm like, it's so weird that Warner himself has listened to this. Like, it's weird that our worlds are now colliding and there's more similarities between the Shadow Me world and our world. At first I was like, that song, like really, it's like a little weird. It's like a harmonica solo. Would Warner really be into a harmonica solo? But then during the live stream that Tahara hosted, she said, it means a lot to me and there's a lot of meaning behind it and maybe one day I'll tell that story. And I'm like, okay, if it's a song that means a lot to Tahara, that changes things. Then we get to the scene where they're all taking a walk on the beach, and I have a couple of things to roast Warner about in this scene. First of all, my boy wearing a blood red suit, whew, no overcoat, whew.
Never gets cold.
With a briefcase, chaotic evil. There's just this recurring plot point where they're all like, you have to tell each other things about each other. There's so many secrets. There's so much you don't know about each other. And Haider is acting so weird. I'm sorry if I'm saying his name wrong. Haider. I have a couple of theories about why Haider is so weird about Juliet and Warner being together. He's always saying to Warner, like, why would you go for her? She's just a beautiful face. Like, what's the point of this? It's not worth it. It's difficult because in the beginning of the book, Warner said, like, I've gotten messages from all over the world of people telling me to stop going after her, like to focus on what's right. Especially whenever his mom was getting sick, that people would tell him, keep your eye on the ball, like, get it together. So I'm wondering if it's something like that where he's genuinely just being like, you have to do your job. Or, this is turning into a Shatter Me 5 theories video, but I'm wondering, does he have any sort of personal involvement with Warner that would make it so that he's jealous of them being together? Because Warner said, I've had multiple partners, so I wouldn't put it past him to have more than just a relationship with Lena. I'm like, did he and Haider have something? Like, I don't know. I'm only like half kidding when I talk about that because it would make sense for that to be the root of Haider's jealousy, or if there's some sort of unrequited love there. That's gonna be something that's gonna be interesting to find out, is why is Haider so invested in Warner and Juliet's relationship? It's none of your business, boy. And then we get to the scene where Juliet gets shot. I have a lot to say. First of all, Nazira saving Juliet's life solidified her as my woman. Like, the people who say that she's sketchy, reread this scene, because she's in, especially like the dream sequence thingy afterward where like she sees her when she's half asleep, and then the tree scene. Basically reread every scene with Nazira and you'll understand she's loyal. Recently someone in my Shatter Me group chat was like, do you think that Nazira hired that shooter to shoot Juliet? Okay, here's the thing. I'm skipping ahead a little bit with predictions, but I think that the bullets that shot Juliet and the poison that covered them, I don't think it was with intention to kill her, because it said she was shot in like the back and then like her leg. So like, this person wasn't trying to kill her. They would have shot her in the forehead. I think that this person shot her with poisoned bullets that have some sort of serum on them to undo the memory block that she had put in her brain. Let me explain. Because whenever she's hallucinating and she falls on the ground, she sees birds. And this whole thing throughout the series has been her being obsessed with birds. Big old theory coming. Hold on. What if they are hallucinations? Because obviously there's not sunshine and birds. What if these are hallucinations of memories she had from back in New Zealand? Sip on that. We'll return to it. But I just adore the narrative of Juliet getting shot, and then whenever Nazira's like picking her up, Juliet's like, you're so beautiful, thank you, I love you. Like, the female friendship that's already developing, and like at dinner how Juliet was looking at Nazira like self-conscious about herself, listening to her talking and like looking up to her. It was just such a sweet narrative of female friendship that we've never gotten in this series before, and I'm like, thank you, Nazira, for coming and saving the day. And then we get to the scene where Warner is running up the stairs to get to Juliet. Anyone else emo? Is it just me? Emo are us? Even though this is like a half a page scene, there's just certain images in the series that will stick with me. And I think that Warner running up a staircase to get to Juliet in a medical wing is one of those things that just grabs me by the neck and doesn't let go, because it's so sweet but sad. I live on the 4th floor of my dorm and I take the stairs every day because I'm trying to be good and healthy or whatever. And now every time I take those stairs, I'm running up them like, Juliet, my Juliet, and that's my inspiration to walk up a staircase. So thank you, Warner, for forever changing staircases in my mind. In that whole scene where they reunite and Juliet's like, Nazira saved my life, and she says his name in front of everyone. I will say that one of my predictions was that everyone would find out Warner's first name, and now I'm like, I'm not mad they didn't find out his name. But here's the thing. If Castle knows a bunch about Warner, he probably already knows his name, which is a little anticlimactic, but at the same time, people in Ignite Me asked him, or were asking Juliet about it, so I'm sure not everyone knows. Either way, I'm still craving a scene where Kenji finds out Warner's name, and then it's like, yeah, that's weird, I'm gonna keep calling you Warner. One of my questions is, if Nazira has powers, and this is kind of jumping ahead, but if Nazira has powers, how can Warner not sense them? I think it's interesting that he described Nazira as a hummingbird because, first of all, foreshadowing to her flying, and second of all, he's talking about how she's hard to place, he doesn't really know what's going on in her head, she's hard to figure out. I'm wondering how much of that is driven by events that happened in this book, like Nazira knows more about Juliet's past than everyone else, and she was friends with her as a kid, and she has these powers she's hiding, versus how much more is she hiding that we've already found out? Because in her character files at the end of Restore Me in the Barnes & Noble edition, it's talking about how she's this really great computer hacker and she's hiding something. And I don't know if that goes beyond what's in this book or if that's just there. Because right now I feel like we've learned everything about her and like the things that they say about her were already solved in this book, but I could be naive and there's a lot more to find out about her. And I'm just really blindly trusting her because she grabbed me by the throat with her comments about feminism. I don't know where I stand on that. If y'all have any theories about why Nazira is this untrustworthy person, let me know. I have a lot to say about the scene where Castle and Warner are talking in the hallway outside Juliet's hospital room, just because there's a lot of new backstory stuff it's just really hard to come to terms with, but also it's like, it's difficult. My first issue with everything is, how does Castle know so much? So as much as I love learning more about Juliet's backstory, I'm like, what is the significance of Castle being the one to know all of this? Because I was spoiled on the book and I knew that Emmeline, her name's pronounced Emmeline, but whatever, I'm gonna call her Emma. Because I knew that Emma was being tortured by Warner and she existed and Juliet's backstory was not what we think it was, none of this was shocking for me, I guess? I don't know, but now when I reread it, I'm just trying to figure it out. What are the Carfax? So my biggest confusion with this part is Castle says, your time with Juliet was an experiment that was failed. And I'm just really confused about like what all in Juliet's life was an experiment. I know they were trying to get her powers to develop whenever she was placed with her family, and then they did, and then they didn't swoop in and do anything, and then they took her back into their care, they put her in an asylum because they wanted to do more testing, but then they let her sit in a cell for 264 days. Like, it's just hard to figure out like what was the experiment, why was she being kept there, who orchestrated things, why did Anderson care so much, why did Anderson have her and Warner be friends and not say anything. Like, there's so much technical stuff that I'm wondering. I don't want to throw Tata under a bus. I'm not sitting here trying to discredit everything she's built with this series. Like, I trust the evolution of these characters, but at the same time it's like, how much of this did she not intend to put in the original trilogy and then she just thought up for the fourth book and now she's having to go back and re-envelop these details into the series, if that makes sense? I know people who really hate this book and they say that they think Tahara made up all of this new stuff and it doesn't fit with the original trilogy. I don't know where I stand on that. I can't sit here and say like, oh, everything is fake, this didn't fit in the original trilogy, like she just thought of this afterward as an afterthought, it's not real. There are parts like this where I'm like, what about her life was experimentation, that I'm wondering, did Tahara know that when she wrote Shatter Me, or is this just something that she's thinking of now for a new series? Another thing I'm confused about is they were saying like Warner was instrumental in her experimentation. If they don't know about Warner's powers, then how is he of any importance to her? Like, were they gonna see if Warner could make her use her powers and that's how they were watching her? And that's another thing, is like they don't know about Warner's powers. Warner kept his power a secret from his dad. So like, first of all, I think he would be free of their experimentation, so like why is he being focused on? Did they know she was gonna try and overthrow Anderson? Did they know that she was gonna rebel and they were just watching her? Like, I'm just so confused on the logistics of everything. Okay, I'm done. And going back to Castle, I talked about Castle a lot in the first part of my review, just saying like I don't know if I trust him or not. I'm disappointed that he's saying that Juliet isn't fit for the job, just because like he went from really supporting her to really not supporting her, and I get that she kind of took his job out from underneath him and there are things to criticize about her, but at the same time, you're doubting Juliet Ferrars in this economy. Okay, Castle criticizes her and says that she's unstable, which is annoying, but is he wrong? Because at the end of the day, she did freak out and kill a room of 600 people, so like... So now transitioning to this discussion of Warner can be the only person that tells Juliet about her past because anyone else would make her freak out. As much as I hate it and like, yeah, they're gonna break up and fight about it, I think he's kind of right. Already we've seen so much of Juliet's insecurity in this book and thinking that Warner's better than her and not knowing if she's good enough. She's already so doubtful of the entire system that if anyone else told her, I think she really would have turned against Warner twofold what she already is and just doubted everything and has been like, what did you know that you weren't telling me? Which I think is gonna be a really big plot point in not only this book, but like the next book. It's really gonna be about revealing secrets and revealing what we thought we knew and what all was true, what all wasn't. And it's at this point of the book that we start getting Juliet's journal entries interspersed with the actual narration. I'm gonna take a minute to talk about that just because I feel like it merits its own discussion. The first time I read the book, I skipped the journal entries. I was like, I've read these before, we get it, move on. I was kind of just desperate for new content. I wrote this down in my review notes in a way that I'm gonna read verbatim just because I feel like it encompasses how I feel about the incorporation of the journal entries. I said, I understand this parallel, and I think it's really good that Tejada made the current book mirror the rest of the series, but I don't know if it serves more as a reminder of this series isn't what you thought it was, versus it reading kind of like she's jumping off old material to new stuff even though they were never supposed to connect. And this goes back to that discussion about people saying that the events in this book don't align with what's happened previously in the series. Are the journal entries there to create a cool parallel, or is she trying to somehow like dig up old stuff and like make it connect somehow? I think it's really rude to assume that this book was written with no forethought to the entire series, because Tejada did say like during her live stream, there's things in this book that she always knew that she never told the reader. So it's entirely plausible that this whole storyline existed underneath everything and she just didn't have the rights for another series or more books, or she didn't want to write them. And if you go back and reread the quotes, which I have since rereading them, I think that the journal entries are such a clever parallel to the actual story, and I think that they do work. The one that I think of is I Started Screaming Today is one of them, and that's the one that's put right before the chapter where she kills all those people. I get the criticism that they're not necessary, and I did skip over them, so I understand why people would do that. I think it's so cool to read them and see this thing and this thing connect and this thing and this thing connect. But I understand that it kind of was a page filler at the end of the day, just because I added up all the pages in this that were new content, and there's only like 250 pages of actual new content in this book. Now that we have this book, I think the entire flavor of those journal entries changes because we have so much information about who she was as a kid now, and so it gives it a much more sinister vibe. I think if you read Restore Me, then go back and reread the original trilogy, reading those entries is going to have a totally different flavor, and I think that's maybe a reason why they were interspersed. Reading Shatter Me for the first time, you hear about this darkness in her and this abyss and the bird and how she's a monster and she's angry all the time. It reads a little bit as hyperbole or like self-loathing, but after this book and seeing the depth of that torture and experimentation and the darkness and the memory loss, it's so much more dark. And now I'm wondering, I'm going back to the bird thing, but like, is the entire bird metaphor like her memories that are suppressed? Like, is this bird some symbol of like her life in New Zealand? I'm so stuck on my idea that these birds are memories. So tell me if I'm wrong, but that's what I'm sticking with. One fact that I thought was really interesting is that the Supreme Commanders know that Warner's in love with Juliet. So when they all show up in Glenorchy, okay, the thing is we're calling it Glenorchy, New Zealand. It's probably just gonna be called like Sector 34 or something. Whenever everyone's there and Warner's trying to get her back or save her or whatever, I don't even know if she's gonna need saving is the thing. I have too many theories. Everyone's gonna know Warner's in love with her because it was in Anderson's log, so her parents are gonna know about Warner being in love with her, and I'm wondering if she's gonna have to like fake that she's not in love with him to be able to escape, or what that deal's gonna be. I have no freaking clue, but I just think it's a really interesting detail that the whole world knows about Warner and Juliet. I could give you 30 million predictions about Emmeline, and I don't know how many of them belong in this video. Maybe I'll give you a little sneaky peeky. But she's a whole topic, and I really don't know how to approach that. I just really can't decide if she's loyal to the reestablishment, if she's fighting back, if she's doing well, if they have her tortured still, if parents love her, if they don't, if the documents were falsified that said they were donated, or were they actually stolen? Has Emma been brainwashed and the reestablishment's using her? Is she willingly hurting people? Is she like Juliet? Is she stronger than Juliet? Is she weaker than Juliet? Like, I'm craving just like one sentence about her from Tejada just so I can have some piece of like, who is Emma? The only thing we know about her is what Warner knew about her 2 years ago, and she was like begging for them to stop researching on her. So I think she's held on to some sort of sanity, and I think she's doesn't want to hurt people like the reestablishment wants her to, like Juliet did. But I just don't know anything, like no one knows anything about her, but I need it. So now we're arriving at the scene where Juliet wakes up from being ill. Before this, we had the scene where Nazira was in her room in the middle of the night being like, what do you know? What did you see? And I think that just confirms and solidifies the fact that she knows that Juliet's changed, because she said, what did you see? Like, do you remember? And that also kind of aligns with the person who said that Nazira hired that shooter. I don't know. She's so complex and I love her. How can you not love Nazira? If you don't like Nazira, please unsubscribe. If you're wondering why I just put in a headphone, it's because Bonnie FaceTimed me. Actually, I FaceTimed her because I'm a thirsty hoe. I just needed a live audience. Was anyone aware that the twins were brown? Because I was problematic and I imagined them as white until it described them as brown in this book. The next note I have in my review is now one that is been nullified, but I'm still gonna mention it. Warner could be a robot. Insert clip of Tejada in the Q&A saying Warner is not a robot.
Warner is not a robot.
But he could be. We don't know. Did I talk about Warnet's sex scenes in part 1 already? There's one in part 1 and there's another one in this part. We don't have to talk about it. I talked about it in part 1. I'm not gonna sit here and just discuss porn when I've done that for the past month of my life. I just looked at my watch to count the days and it's April 6th and March 6th was a month ago. 11 more months until the next book. It feels like I've aged a lifetime since Restore Me came out. The only comment, I don't remember if I said this in part 1, but the only comment that I made about the sex scenes being more risque is, I'm glad we didn't jump straight to Sarah J Maas. God bless the YA queen, Tejada Mafi. This next thing I give... There's been a couple parts that I've roasted Warner about, kind of ironically. This is like, I'm unironically about to roast Warner. Stop yelling, ma'am. Okay, so Warner finds out that there's just this life-altering news that he has to deliver to Juliet. And he has to be the person to do it. And it has to be at the right moment. And it has to be the perfect mood so that Juliet doesn't freak out. 2 things. 1, this boy said, why don't I get it in one more time before it happens? And 2, he said, how about I tell her while she also have a titty out still? That's just the one thing I'm like, I get wanting to like do it one last time. Like, sure, live your best life. But did we have to? We're moving, that's gross, we're moving on. Let's confront it now, the Warnet breakup. If you're sad about it, not to be rude, but you're a fool. If you're watching this video and you don't follow Tejada on Twitter, you didn't go to the Q&A, you don't know anything about life, I'm gonna tell you straight, Tejada confirmed they're not actually broken up, okay? Tejada said it was just a really hard time. Juliet was being over dramatic. They're gonna be fine. Like, if you don't follow Tejada on social media, you gotta do it, because she basically confirmed everyone in the book is alive, no one broke up, and they're gonna end up together, and no one's gonna die. Like, Juliet or Warner are not gonna die in this series. So like, why are we upset? So yeah, that's where I'm going next. Is I'm not mad about this breakup. Before Tejada announced that the breakup wasn't real, before she announced that this whole book is fake, I still wasn't mad about this. I can't remember if I was spoiled on them breaking up or not. I don't think I was spoiled on the fact that they like explicitly broke up. Tell me a thing. Write me a fanfiction. What do you think happens in this situation? There's life-altering news that's just been delivered. Her titty is still out. All this traumatic stuff is just building and building. You think she was just gonna be like, okay, you ready for dinner? Like, it's not gonna be one of those things that's just kind of like, oh, okay, brush that off. No, it's her entire life has been a lie. And the person telling her this has known certain aspects of that, not realizing it was something bigger than what he even knew about. Yeah, she's gonna be upset. Yeah, she deserves to run off and go destroy a bus or whatever, just the normal teenage girl things. You can tell every time they see each other afterward, they're like, oh my god, I still love them, but it hurts. It's mind-boggling to me. People are like, oh my god, they broke up. It's like, did you read the rest of the book? Everyone who complains about Restore Me, I'm like, did you read it? Did you read it? Her whole reaction to the news is so justified. I just think, if anything, it's not a breakup, it's just there was a lapse in trust and now they're just gonna have to like rebuild on that. I think Tahada even said, no, I don't think anyone has this on video. I tried to record the live stream, but it cut out audio like a minute in, so I have the first minute of it plus the rest of it with no audio. She said in the live stream toward the end, Juliet already forgives Warner. It's fine. It's so fine. Please stop giving the book 2 stars because they broke up. It's not even real. Give them space. The thing is, this book takes place in like 3 days. A girl's gonna need more than 3 days to process the fact that her entire childhood was a lie and like she was adopted. If this book lasted longer, they would have gotten back together, and they're gonna get back together in book 5. Like, chill. Just chill. So yeah, people always message me like, oh my god, are you upset about it? Oh my god, like, what do you think about the Warner breakup? I'm like, they didn't. They don't hate each other. She didn't like swear him off forever. Like, obviously they're gonna get back together. It's not a Taylor Swift song. They are gonna get back together. I'm gonna cry. I have tried like putting this off and like not thinking about what I'm gonna say about this just because I know I want to be candid and I know I'm gonna get emo, so I'm apologizing right now for what's about to happen. But Warner having a panic attack and having anxiety rep in the series, it means so much to me that it's really hard to articulate, and it's like, even if I talk about it, it's just gonna sound like me being like, oh my god, I love it, thank you. There's like no way for me to actually communicate the way that this validates my entire reading experience of the Shatter Me series and my own personal mental health. A lot of people will understand if you love the series and you have anxiety, like, yeah, it's great that we see someone on the page that has that, but for me it's like, Warner's a character that I idolize. Beyond me being thirsty for him, I love him as a person. I love the way he makes Juliet feel and the way that I feel when he's like, that sounds so corny, but just like having a character that you love and it's like your favorite character, and then having that character, I'm gonna cry because it's like, oh, it's so good. Having that character share an experience that I've dealt with that was nameless to me for so long and that like Shatter Me helped me through, it's like so validating and so priceless. The word validating is the only thing I can say, just because it's so nice to be able to look up to someone as a character, but then they have a scene where they're breaking down and they take medication and they have someone talk them through it and get them out of that, and like the headspace that Warner's in, and in Destroy Me with like when you see his coping tactic. I will be laying in bed at 4 a.m. trying to fall asleep, then I'll remember like Warner has anxiety and I'm just like, oh my god, I have anxiety. If you are an author or you want to write a book one day, small things like that, like it's not a small thing, but if you give a character a cookie, he's gonna want some anxiety. Give me a meaningful character. Okay, great, he's meaningful, but give me a meaningful character that relates to me on a level that no other character has, with explicit, like talking about triggers and anxiety and panic attacks and taking medicine. It just makes it so much more real to me and so much more like, yes, this is my favorite series of all time. You didn't have to confirm it, but now you've confirmed it. Wow. So I knew I would cry talking about that, because every time I think about it, I want to cry. Hopefully the mascara hasn't run. Can I get a makeup check on my phone camera? And just in general, like moving aside from like me being emotional about that anxiety scene, but I could talk for hours about how great that is for not only the YA genre, but like for me personally. Male character with anxiety, first of all, that representation is so great. Him taking medicine on the page and talking about trigger, like, okay, I'll stop talking about it, but amazing. Beyond that though, I think this chapter is also one of my new favorites of the series, just because the iconic quotes that every single page has. I think if you look through all the tabs I have in Restore Me, probably the most concentrated chapter is the anxiety chapter, just because between Kenji being there and between Warner's personality and between Warner getting high on his medication, so many good things. Can we just go through a list? I'll dramatically read them. Number 1, I'm having a panic attack, you inconsiderate ass. Number 2, telling Kenji that his scars, first, Kenji saw his scars. Can we just... birthday gifts from dear old dad. Number 3, I'm very tired. Please go directly to hell. I think this is the first chapter that Warner has said the word shit out loud. Wow, that was a whole whiplash experience. And then finally, my favorite quote in the entire book. Tell me again why these sheets are on the floor? Why do you think they're on the floor? Best quote. Decreed. The chapter that after Juliet runs away from Warner and the breakup and everything, I think is some of the strongest writing in this book, and it's the line between relapsing to becoming the girl that she once was and having to move beyond her. There's so many quotes I underlined in this chapter, but just the discussion about this girl won't leave me alone. Is she part of me? Do I destroy her and destroy that part of me, or do I embrace that and sometimes have to cave to that vulnerability? Like, I was just underlining and highlighting everything in this chapter, but one of my favorite parts of her talking about this is she refuses to die. She remains within me an echo. She haunts the halls of my heart and mind, and though I'd gladly murder her for a chance at freedom, I cannot. It's like trying to choke a ghost. I cannot let the broken girl inside of me inhale all that I've become. I cannot revert back to another version of myself. I will not shatter, not again, in the wake of an emotional earthquake. This book is a gemstone for humanity. Like, that quote, that section is gorgeous, and just that whole discussion about relapse and thinking about your past self. How can one develop words? The quote, I will not shatter, which I just read to you and I have in my review notes because it's just like my favorite part. Again, doing that full circle thing back to book one. Shatter me, I will not shatter. Like, who here's emo? And then, like I said, she rips apart this bus. It's beautiful, it's great. It's the first time we see her using that power of, what's it called, projection? I don't think that she has the power to use her voice. I don't think it's a voice thing. I think it's a projection thing that accompanies. It's not from her voice, it's just her projecting it, and her voice like goes alongside that. I don't know. I love this scene where she's ripping apart this bus and she's being like, there is no relief because whatever I touch I destroy, and there's no actual like output of my energy. So beyond empowering. And then we move on to the scene where Kenji and Warner are together. Todd had mentioned before the book came out that her favorite scene is one that Kenji and Warner are together in, and I think it's either this one or the past one where Warner's having his panic attack. This scene is so important, and I know I can say that about every page of this book, but I can't get over how meaningful this scene is just because I mentioned in my predictions videos, and it came true, Kenji in this book is becoming to Warner what he was for Juliet in Unravel Me, which is that cheerleader of getting over yourself and getting over your past experiences and just like being a better person and being stronger because of it. So whereas for Juliet, he was like, you have to learn to control your power. In Restore Me, he's telling Warner like, you have to get your shit together and like, you can't keep living like this if you want to have a happy life. And I'm just like, Kenji Kishimoto does not deserve to ever be looked down upon, to ever have anyone lay a hand on. If anyone wants to come for Kenji Kishimoto, they can come to my house, 3410 Taft Boulevard, Wichita Falls, Texas, 76308. Come over right now. I really do like the progression of, at the beginning of the book, Juliet's like, you guys don't have to be friends. And they were like, thank God. And then throughout the book, Kenji's like, Warner, do you need anything? I would die for you. Warner, do you need, like, I love you. It's so funny to me that they act like they hate each other and then they just form this... It's so hard to think of words that describe relationships between Shatter Me characters because it's not a bond. They're not friends. He's just kind of there. Like, they don't hate each other. I love the slow development of Kenji and Warner's relationship. Warner doesn't have friends. Enemies to lovers, am I right, ladies? Back to Juliet's POV, we get her and Nazira. I was spoiled on Nazira's power on Twitter. Someone was like, oh my god, Nazira can turn invisible and fly! And I was like, I'm sure she can. Thanks for telling me. Nazira's powers. You think this is funny? The thing about Kenji and Nazira sharing a power, this is going to transition into my next topic as well. Cool, but also, because I don't ship Nazira and Kenji. And it's not that I'm sitting here being like, oh, Kenji was queer baited, oh, Kenji needs to have a boyfriend. I don't ship it. I'm gonna watch this after book 6 and they're married and be like, oh my god, can you imagine? But the chemistry is not there. If in future books there starts to develop something, yeah, like I love the characters individually, I love them together, like sure, I'll go for it. But like at the current point, I'm not sitting here like, oh, I wish they'd get together, because they're still such separate people and I'm still holding out for Nazira and Emma being together. There were so many people in the fandom, like whenever I did a poll over is Kenji straight, 84% of people said Kenji is bisexual. Popular opinion in the fandom is we wanted Kenji to be bisexual. And I think saying like, oh, I'm disappointed he would be with Nazira kind of erases us saying that. If we meant bisexual, we meant bisexual. Like, he's allowed to be attracted to a woman. I don't see them as a couple, at least not yet. And I can't point to a specific point in the text that solidifies that, but I do stand by it. Does anyone understand where I'm coming from? Because I don't see it. People that love this ship already, they would die for that ship. But I'm just like, you know what we're gonna talk about now? Lena Mishkin. It has come to my attention that it's pronounced Mishkin and not Mishkin, but you know what? Number one, I'm not Russian. Number two, she does not deserve to have her name pronounced right. Okay, goodbye. I'm gonna talk about her from 2 points of view, as a character and as a person in the story. As a person in the story, why was she necessary? As a character in the story, she's the worst. There's a difference between those two things that I will discuss now. I was one of those people who, in my heart, I knew Warner couldn't have been a virgin. Like, come on. I read Ignite Me. I romanticize firsts so much that I was like, but maybe. Finding out he wasn't a virgin, I'm not mad about it. Like, he could be with every of the Supreme Commander's kids and I'd be like, whatever. But this person, Lena is the most useless subplot in this series. And I'm not saying that because I'm mad that she was with Warner, and I'm not saying that because I think Juliet's better than her. Like, I don't want anything I'm saying to be construed as I'm pitching Juliet and Lena against each other. I'm not trying to compare them as women on the page. She was just there for petty drama and to be problematic. It was so unnecessary, and it was really disappointing to see in contrast to how every single other character in the Shatter Me series is complex, excluding Lena. Like, she is strictly just a trope of the shitty ex-girlfriend. Like, there's nothing deeper to her character than that, and that itself is so upsetting to me. I kind of knew going into this that the ex-girlfriend was gonna be Warner's, and I was like, I cannot wait for a scene where like Juliet and this ex-girlfriend become friends and then Warner walks in and it's really awkward. I wanted them to be friends because that would be cute to like make fun of Warner together. But it ended up being this like fire-breathing bitch queen. It just was so tropey for her to be like slapping Warner and threatening Warner and still being in love with Warner. And can I say Warner any more times? Warner. The physical abuse, the verbal abuse, it was so over the top. It was like Adam and Ignite Me. The biggest problem I have with the book that a lot of people have a problem with, that people are marking stars off for, is this whole transphobia thing. And the reason why I'm also really upset with Lena is because we could have had such a healthy introduction to having a trans character in the series that wasn't so outright problematic. Lena only existed to prove to the reader that she's a horrible person. We could have had this really empowering scene where we have a trans character introduced, and that's new representation, obviously, like that's monumental in a dystopian series to have a trans character. And instead we're just force-fed with a shovel. Lena being like, you're playing dress up. It was so unnecessary. And it's so disheartening that we couldn't have had one nice thing. And I'm not sitting here saying that Tahara intended, I know that intention is kind of void whenever you write stuff like this, but I know that Tahara would never intend to be transphobic in a book. It was so distasteful to the point of like, we already disliked Lena. Why did we need transphobic comments? No one liked Lena. Why did we need to go the extra step and have her be like also horrible? Because I know she's a Russian character and Russia is really against LGBT anything. I get that because of her heritage. And no offense to Russian people, I know that probably a ton of you disagree with this, but I know like in the government level, there's such an opposition to being out if you're gay or trans. So I feel like if that was residual in the government, then it makes sense that Lena would be transphobic. But did we need it? That's what I'm stuck on, is I'm just like, why did we need to go that far? Like, we couldn't have just introduced Valentina and established her as a kick-ass character, but not had the disgusting comments behind it. There's a difference between Lena was mean to Warner and mean to Juliet, and then she apologizes and gets over it. But now it's, she's a horrible person because at the level of human decency has rejected someone's identity and is transphobic, which is like, to me, irredeemable. Like, if she tries to go through a whole, oh, I'm so sorry, I've learned from that, like, blah, 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 like, you can't get rid of a disgusting comment. Like, there's no way we can redeem her, and if she doesn't die and if she tries to go through this redeeming subplot. It's just gonna make it an even worse mess. I want to nod to the person who I first saw this discussion from, Sylvia. I will link her review and her Twitter down below. She has a thread about the transphobic comments. I don't know if I explained myself very articulately, but if you want to go see more, she has a very thought out review that I will link down below once again. That's kind of the biggest issue that people pull from this book, which I totally agree with. Furthermore, when Juliet and Lena meet for the first time in Warner's perspective, there's such a dynamic of comparing the two, and he literally uses the words like in comparison to each other. It's like, shut up, Warner, we are not comparing women in 2018. He was like, whereas Lena is tall, first of all, rude, and blonde and freckled and her face looks this certain way, Juliet is like this and she's so much more better at this and prettier like this. And I'm just like, stop. Women can be different and still be great in 2018. And again, she proves herself to be a horrible person, not because she's not as great in comparison to Juliet, but just because she's a horrible person as a person, not as a woman in comparison to Juliet. You feel me? That's all I'm saying. But transitioning from Lena being the worst part of the book, she also opened the door for one of the best parts of the book, which is Juliet Ferrars roasting her to a crisp the first time they meet. So when they meet and Lena's like, oh, it's so nice to meet Warner's ex-girlfriend, and Juliet goes, you can call me the Supreme Commander of North America. I'm sorry, how is this wig still attached to my head? I'm very confused because it flew! March 6th? It flew! I haven't recovered from that line yet. This is so random, but one of the comments I have on my review sheet is, every time someone tries to punch Warner and he catches their fist midair, I gain 5 years onto my lifespan. My new favorite scene in the entire series, and this is controversial, drunk Juliet scene. How can you not love it? I understand why you don't love it, but I'm gonna go through it from my perspective. Okay, I say that Ignite Me is my favorite book in the Shatter Me series because the angst dynamic between Warner is just too good to be true. This angst in this chapter alone is better than all of Ignite Me. So Juliet getting drunk, beautiful, love her. Support my woman. Shaving her head, looking at herself in the mirror and seeing herself and saying, for the first time in my life, I love how I look. How can you read that and then continue to go, I hate her haircut? It's like if I were to cut my hair and be like, I love my haircut, it's beautiful, I love the way I look, and you go, I think it's ugly. Who asked your opinion? It's so meaningful to her. Especially, I was talking earlier about how she kept comparing herself to other people, and when she was in the closet with Kenji earlier in the series being like, what should I wear? What should I do? Will I look good? Will I look too cute? Like, I don't want to look cute. I want to look like a leader. And she finally gets to this point where she looks in the mirror and goes, I love this. This is me. I look good. I look confident. I finally feel confident. Please stop singing This Is Me from Camp Rock Bonnie. It's not a good time. How can you not support her? It's 2018 and people are out here not supporting Juliet Ferrars. I can't relate. I'm just saying. That by itself is so good. And then Warner and Kenji walk in and it gets so much better and I'm gonna die. The way that Warner speaks to her in this chapter, it's one of those things where it's like Warner running up the stairs to get her. It's a mood, and it's like a snippet of just like seeing a facial expression of like Warner kneeling next to her and touching her and being like, were you trying to hurt yourself? What did you do? And just like in that glimpse, just the depth of what they feel for each other. Where's my blankie? Blankie! I went this whole review without blankie. She said, I loved you in past tense. The background of this video is going to be messed up now because I moved all my sheets, but we only have a couple more points left to go, meaning the entire end of the book, meaning 20 more minutes. Kenji in the background being like, what can I do for you? Like, what do you want me to do? You want me to... Beautiful! Like I was saying, Kenji acts like he hates Warner, but then he's like, I will do anything for you, daddy. There's one line in this scene that I think is so underrated that I think made a tweet about or something, I don't remember. After Kenji goes and turns on the shower for Juliet and comes back and says, do you want me to take it from here? It's one line, and again, if anyone's gonna freak out about it, it's me because I care about every stupid detail in this book. But the fact that he would say, I can take it from here, meaning he doesn't want Warner to get bad about it. He knows how sensitive Warner is about it. He knows Warner gets in a dark headspace when things like this happen, and it's just like, he offered to do it's meaningful, and it just shows the depth of the character development between Warner and Kenji's relationship. And I'm emo. The drunk dialogue between Warnette was so sweet. Juliet's unfiltered, unbridled thoughts are finally coming out, and it's like she says she's always wanted to shave her head, but she never even thought of doing it seriously when she was sober. So I think this is a series that just reveals like the inner depths of what she wants to say and what she wants to do, and it's like that rock bottom we needed to hit in order— sorry, I'm just— rock bottom we needed to hit. I'm thinking about like spanking Warner. It's that rock bottom we needed to hit. No, I can't say it. It's the rock bottom we needed to hit in order to be able to crawl out of that abyss and to like grow from it. Again, I think it's such a natural progression of like a roller coaster, like ups and downs. Character development isn't always going to be that straight line going all the way up to the heavens, succeeding over and over. She's obviously gonna have some losses in there. She's gonna take some L's. Is that what the millennials are saying now? And just the shower scene where he throws her in there and she says come in, and he closes the door. My ass thought for 2 seconds he was gonna get in, but you know. It's just a really powerful scene. It's my new favorite in the series. I wish it was 50 pages longer. I'm definitely gonna be writing fan fictions about it from every perspective and every line that was skipped. I think it was so sad, but sweet, but powerful, but cute, but like, beautiful scene. If you read it and hated it, please just go into it with a clear mind and reread it and just appreciate it, because it's the best scene. The best scene. Sorry for the abrupt lighting change. Is it a WhittyNovels content without something dying? Following the drunk scene, I think it was so cute how everyone was popping their heads out. I don't think it was cute that the only presence we have of side characters is them popping their heads out to check on Warner. But I do think it was endearing how everyone was like, are you okay? And he's like, affection from people? People caring about me? Like literally Kaz Brecker being like, don't touch me, don't look at me, don't think about me. I just keep coming back to the idea in this review. I was so obsessed with this when I wrote this, and now it's just so like, duh. The fact that Warner doesn't remember Juliet. I used to think it was so disturbing, like, oh my god, his memories were erased, oh my god, he was so traumatic back then that he forgot about it. Tahada said the exact quote, he was forced to forget, which either means that he doesn't remember Juliet because that was so far back in his memory toward traumatic times when his dad started beating him that he like blocked it out himself, or he was also given some sort of memory thing. My first question is, why is Ella so important for him to forget if she's just like some kid from another parent? But then I just realized as I said that, like, okay, if they were gonna become the Supreme Commanders and like be important and be people that Warner's gonna interact with for the next like decade, then yeah, it makes sense why he would have to forget that they had kids. Otherwise he'd be questioning like, didn't you have 2 kids? Where'd they go? Did they do that to everyone then? Like, were all the kids brainwashed? But then why didn't that work on Nazira? And did Hyder know, or did Nazira have to tell him before they told Warner at the end of Restore Me? All around me are a million questions. I'm only gonna mention this hallway kissing scene once because I think I already exhausted the topic of the breakup's not even real, so why are we freaking out? I think it just solidifies the fact that you can obviously tell they still have feelings for each other, they just need some distance, or Juliet just needs some distance from it. Because she like cares about him and wants to give him another chance, but they have to build that back up. It's gonna happen in the next books. The ending. Everything's fake. I don't know how much of this is me being in denial about it versus me having seen the live stream where Tahada talks about it and literally says they're fine. Well, she doesn't say they're fine, but there's been so much heavy hinting that it's not what we think it is. I've said that maybe the ending is a hallucination, maybe one of her parents has the power to like make her see things literally stolen from Breaking Dawn. I also think like, okay, back at the end of Unravel Me, Juliet's like, oh my god, all my friends are dead. I think Juliet just might be overreacting and saying they're dead, but they're not. She's obviously not the most reliable narrator in the world. We have some leeway to get these characters back just because, first of all, they were never in the book and Tahada wouldn't kill them and just have it be meaningless. No, we have to have more trust in our woman than that. So I think everyone's alive and fine. I think it's really interesting that she's killed all the CCRs of the country, because now it's like only one person leads, because all the other like governors of America are now dead. So who's gonna lead the entire country? Spoiler alert, everyone was abducted and taken away in handcuffs except for Sarah, Sonia, James, and Adam. So we have 4 people that'll save the day and stick behind in Sector 45. I don't think they bombed Sector 45. I'm just gonna word vomit while talking about this ending because there's so many things that are ricocheting in my head. I don't think they bombed Sector 45. That was supposed to be all the Supreme Commander's choice, and why would they do it while the kids were there? And furthermore, if all the Supreme Commanders are working together to try and take out Sector 45, why would Juliet's parents then swoop in and try and take her and save her? Like, it's so hard for me to figure out if her parents are supposed to be these good figures or bad figures, because on one hand it's like they want to kill Juliet and give her up to science, but on the other hand, what if some of that was lies and they didn't want to give her up and she was stolen from them? If they're supposed to be the Supreme Commanders, they're supposed to be really horrible people, but what if they're the actual only nice ones? Like, I can't decide if I want her parents to be good people or bad people. And I think again it's going to be that complex dynamic of there's good parts and bad parts to them. What outweighs what side? Will they survive the series? Will they be taken out? Will Emma become the Supreme Commander of New Zealand and take over for the parents and be an uncorrupted regime? Or like, what's the deal there? I'm confused on what the significance is of bringing her to New Zealand unless they want to protect her from the other Supreme Commanders killing her. So obviously they have some investment in her well-being. I don't know if they want to use her like they wanted to give up Emmeline. It's not Emmeline, it's Emmeline. I'm so sorry. I can't figure them out. If you have any theories, let me know. The photographs, everyone is just freaking out about that Aaron and Ella thing. It's just so hard to talk about because now I'm just getting into theories of the new book and I don't want to go so far into it without having any information. We literally don't have a synopsis for the next book and we're already like, okay, here's what's gonna happen in the next book. That's just me. I'm the one being like, I have the whole thing written in my head. Before Restore Me came out, I made a list of stuff I wanted and none of it came true, but I'm already doing it again for the next book. Did I learn nothing? I'm happy about the ending. People are like, oh, it's the worst. Untied strings. We never see those characters before they die. It was done really badly. I'm just like, this honestly reads like the first half of one book. And I feel like whenever the next book comes out, it's gonna feel like there's an ending to, unless there's a cliffhanger on that one then too. That's gonna suck. I feel like this video is coming off as more of a like, here's my reactions to it and my predictions, rather than here's an actual commentary of what I feel was good and bad about it. I'm trying to think of like overall bad things because I feel like I've talked a lot about good things. Genuinely, it's like a 3-star book because it reads strictly as like a bridge between the next book and where we were before. So much of it is inner monologue and there's very little action. My deal is I'm so biased because I was craving any sort of content that like everything was great to me. Even though nothing happened, I was like, but I love the characters. I could have a whole book of them just like sitting in a room and I'd be like 10 stars. Beautiful characters and writing, even though nothing happened. So if you're someone who's a stickler about like you have to have really good plot, yeah, I'm sure you wouldn't like this book as much. Ooh, chapters, that's another thing. I kind of wish we would have had numbers rather than just alternating perspectives. I like Warner POV, but can we just get numbers that go along with it? Because ain't nobody know what I talk about when I say chapter 22. I have so much more to say beyond what I covered in this video, and I have, honest to God, exhausted like every topic about this book. So if you want to message me, we can go off about it. You want to send me your theories, we can go off about it. I'm sure I'm gonna have a plethora of Shatter Me Book 5 reactions and theories and all that good stuff. I doubt I'll go as extra as I was about Restore Me. Hopefully you enjoyed me ranting my lungs out about Restore Me. For 4 years, I'm just gonna say it, for 4 years in the waiting, I'm a little disappointed. There were individual scenes that made this book worth it in the long run, so I'm just like, I can't not give it 5 stars, you know? Maybe this should have been longer. We could have been given more transition scenes and scenes with the side characters and other stuff. That's really the only complaint I have about it, is I didn't get enough, and that's just me being a greedy ass bitch being like, give me more content. That's all I have to say about it. It's honestly not, it's just all I can fit into a video. Thank you everyone so much for watching this review. If you have any disagreements or agreements or further thoughts, other stuff to talk about, let me know. If you have not read Restore Me, read it, give it 5 stars, review it on Amazon. Unless you hated it, don't review it on Amazon. Have a wonderful life, everyone. I will see you with book 5 predictions, even though this video was basically book 5 predictions. Goodbye!